Michelle Donelan seems to have nothing of the positive to say. This doesn't greatly surprise me, and I find it extraordinary that person after person in her role uh, is so monumentally ineffective. Her predecessor, Nadine Dorries, was shameful in her inability to do anything and her disdain for the arts. Michelle Donelan, uh, well, I think if she poured a bucket of ordure over her ministry, she wouldn't do very much difference or damage. Now, yesterday, she gave an interview where she talked about Jeremy Clarkson having the right to use fairly abusive language about Megan Markle, which came in for raised eyebrows at the time and a huge number of complaints. She refers to freedom of speech, which, of course, I entirely champion, but I think there's a point at which freedom of speech becomes abuse, and giving somebody who has the public ear the opportunity and the power to be quite so abusive is disturbing. To defend that is equally disturbing. It would probably have been better had she said nothing. I think, frankly, why change? Why change a habit of a lifetime? As for the other stuff she's talking about the Parthenon sculptures, the Elgin marbles, and George Osborne, the former Chancellor of the Exchequer, who's got a role in the British Museum, had been talking about repatriating them on a 100-year loan or some sort of loan, and this seems to have been going quite far. Now, she says quite absolutely that this is not the case, that George Osborne never intended doing this. So how many people have been misrepresented in order to secure Michelle Donelan's peace of mind? It is quite extraordinary. The Elgin Marbles deal was at an advanced stage, we're told. Last month, the Greek newspaper Tanea reported that talks between Mr. Osborne and the Greek government were progressing positively, and indeed the repatriation, the return of these marbles probably was inevitable. But no, Miss Donelan has stepped in with the weight of her ponderous office and rubbished the entire process. It would be nice if Miss Donelan would actually do something positive for a change. Has she achieved anything? No. All she's done is to scupper everybody else's efforts and to praise Clarkson. She might as well go and stick her head down the lavatory for the amount of good that she is actually doing at this particular moment. You know, why has she been appointed? She doesn't answer her letters, but then that's a process that was set in stone by her predecessor. There's a person called Julia Lopez. Now, I was asked the other day why didn't I explain the background to my conversations with this gutter trawling ministry, led by gutter snipes. Well, yeah. My purpose in this was to try to ensure that people involved in reality TV were protected. And the media is in hoik to reality TV, as indeed it seems is politics. Reality TV is very powerful. So for being on reality TV, we're told that people who have been on reality TV should receive psychiatric care. One only needs psychiatric care if one has serious problems. So either there is a choice. Either people who have been selected to be on reality TV are in need of psychiatric support, or reality TV has endangered them so much that they are in need of psychiatric support. Either reality TV producers have been casting vulnerable individuals, or they are making people vulnerable. Either way, I think it's worrying. Now, the government held a committee meeting and then stopped it halfway through once it had received testimony from production. It received very little testimony from people who were invited to participate in these shows as, well, they would say contestants, I would say participants. The game is a MacGuffin. Reality TV isn't really interested in the game. Reality TV is interested in exposing people's drama, creating drama, without a script, or at least without telling the participants that there is a script. And they talk about unscripted reality, but of course there is a script. There is always a script. And participants are encouraged to follow the script that they know nothing about. They are manipulated, they are fed, they are pushed and encouraged to adhere to the drama that has already been plotted for them. And it is very rare that somebody can move off that track. I think I did. I'm rather pleased with what I did while I was on the circle. But afterwards, the manipulation continues. Now, the media is complicit in telling the public that what happens is people can't deal with fame or the loss of fame. This is rubbish. What happens after reality TV is a barrage of manipulation which even the sanest individual would find very difficult to negotiate. I felt that I was subjected to 18 months of pure hell. It was worse than being held at gunpoint. I made that point in an article I wrote for The Independent. Shortly after that, I was diagnosed with cancer, and when the tumour was removed, I was told that the tumour was about 18 months old. It's not a legal case, it's anecdotal, but I think it rather sums up the point. The level of stress that followed an appearance on reality TV was extreme. I know people who tried to commit suicide, and when they turned for help, it wasn't there. It's all smoke and mirrors and words. The real help is not there. And the real help exists elsewhere in the industry. The real help exists in the form of union support, in the form of agents and managers. And yet reality TV production goes out of its way to avoid both of these support systems. And indeed, the union equity doesn't want to be involved with reality TV participants. It says you're not acting because you're acting as yourself. Well, that is still acting. That is still performing. And the equity union was the second actors union, the second performers union. The first was the Variety Artists Federation. And the Variety Artists Federation, which joined equity in the 1960s, had a principle that anybody who was performing was entitled to support. Equity doesn't have that view, despite linking up with the Variety Artists Federation. It doesn't support their principles. I think somebody who is on television night after night, performing for the nation, on primetime TV, has every reason and every right to expect representation by the Performers Union Equity. I think Mr. Fleming, who leads that union, is wrong. And I've said so on many an occasion. We've had correspondence about that. My view is not going to change. I'm waiting for him to change. I'm waiting for someone else to take over his role, because he clearly is too young to reflect and to consider that anybody else might have a different view to his that might be right. I'm quite happy, for my part, to be pointed over to somebody else. If there's another union that can take over and represent these people, great. But neither Fleming nor anybody else can tell me who can do that. So there's a group of people who are being exploited by management, who are not represented by any union or by any agents or by any management at all, and who are simply open to exploitation. And it's wrong to say that all these people have brought it on themselves, that they applied to be on these shows. It's simply not true. Most of the people that I know who have appeared in reality TV programs have been headhunted, as I was. And the period of time when one has an opportunity to make an informed decision is minimum. I was also told very firmly that I wasn't supposed to discuss this with anybody. I didn't. So you go into these programs with no support and no advice from anybody. And that's how they wanted. And in my case, I didn't even know what the program was like. I did actually watch it. I did actually watch the first series about 2 days before I entered the building and started filming. But that was the amount of knowledge that I had. I had very little knowledge about reality TV. I don't watch it. When we're at home, the only television that happens to be on is generally Turkish. You know, I'm not a great watcher of reality TV. I haven't even watched Strictly Come Dancing. So I wrote to the former Secretary of State for Culture, Digital Culture, Media and Sport. In fact, I wrote to the one before that as well. But I certainly wrote to Nadine Dorries. And I wrote to her on the day that I was admitted to hospital with cancer. And I pointed that out in my letter. And it took over 6 months before Julia Lopez bothered to write to me. And she referred me to Ofcom. I contacted Ofcom and I told them what I was writing about, and they said it's not in their remit. And she's written to me again. In fact, I'll tell you what she says. I'm aware that Professor Wilson has written to the department on a number of occasions on the issue of ensuring adequate regulation and support for individuals who appear on reality TV shows. As set out in previous correspondence on the 7th of February and 17th of August 22, it is for Ofcom, not the government, to make changes to the broadcasting code. Well, Ofcom says it's not its job. Ofcom, she says, has a duty to keep that code under review and make changes where they consider it necessary. Ofcom's rules to protect people who appear on television, which have now been in place since the 5th of April 2021, were made following extensive public consultation on what they consider as effective and proportional rule changes. No. That consultation, that committee hearing, was truncated by the calling of a general election in 2019 and was never called again. So all of this is done on half a committee hearing, and that is the problem. I understand that Professor Wilson does not consider these rules adequate. However, it will be for Ofcom as the independent regulator to initially review those rules and make changes if they consider it appropriate. Well, I've spoken to Ofcom. Each time I receive a letter from Julia Lopez, I speak to Ofcom. And last time she actually advised me to speak to yet another organisation as well. They were also surprised to be referred to. So, it is nonsensical. And as set out previously, I cannot comment on the DCMS committee's review into reality TV since they are an independent parliamentary committee. It's one thing after another. And it's about passing the buck and about avoiding responsibility. And that seems to be the mantra of our present government and its immediate predecessors. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And when Michelle Donelan bothers to make a public pronouncement, it seems to be entirely negative, except for the adulation of Jeremy Clarkson. What can I say?